crappy ballistic nylon sheath. You know, when I first started watching YouTube knife reviews, I heard these guys complaining about these crappy ballistic nylon sheaths, but I didn't own one, so I didn't really understand. And over time, you know what happened? I started buying knives. And with those knives, I started collecting crappy ballistic nylon sheaths. And they've added up. And before you know it, I find myself absolutely swimming in crappy ballistic nylon sheaths. And so, what am I doing about it now? What do I think about them? Well, you know, I've done some stuff to work around my crappy nylon sheaths, but at the same time, I still have these. So I figured, what the heck? I have so many of these, I'm going to stack it up, take a look at manufacturer to manufacturer, and figure out which brand's putting out the crappiest of the crappy ballistic nylon sheaths. I put all the knives back in their sheaths, pretty much just so I could make sure I knew exactly which ones I was talking about here, because it can be a little confusing sometimes, because they're all crappy, and it's really hard to tell which knife goes in the crappy sheath, and which one's which size and whatever. So I put them all back in, just to make sure that they'd fit. Now I'm going to try not to talk about the knives. If you're really savvy, you're going to know exactly which knives I have in here, but I haven't reviewed them all, and I'm going to, and so I'm going to try not to spoil the fun. But anyway, here we have Tops knives. Here we have, spread these out, we have Ontario's. Here we have Beckers. And here we have Schrades. And so I have a little representative sample of, you know, a few different companies and what they do. And so now we'll look at these in a little bit of detail. And well, let's see what we see. Tops knives. Obviously, they make some beautiful knives. They don't care it's a crappy ballistic nylon sheath. They're like, what? I'm going to put my name right on it. I don't care. I'm Tops Knives. And so, you know, obviously, they're not worried about it. I mean, you know, tons of their knives come in these ballistic nylon sheaths, and so, you know, it's just something that comes with the territory. Now, I'm going to ignore this one because it's been significantly modified, so we'll just look at these two. I have a larger blade here and a medium-sized blade, and so just at a get-go, you know, you look at the outside of it and you realize that they're pretty similar in construction. Same nylon, same holes on the bottom. They both originally come with a whistle. I've removed this one. The same sort of pocket here with a clip and two straps. On the back side, we end up with you know, some molly, so you could attach it to a pack. And same with this one. So even though these knives are different sizes, they have very similar features, and the construction of the sheaths are extremely similar. When you get a little further into the details, you'll notice that the retention strap, first off, is Velcro. It has absolutely no adjustability to make the actual, you know, Velcro loop larger or smaller. Simply just, you know, lash the thing around your handle and tighten it up as best you can. Kind of weak in my mind. I mean, you know, I'm looking at it and I'm like, all right, first off, you know, Velcro gets all kind of nasty after it's just been flapping in the breeze and picks up dust and lint and dirt and all sorts of stuff. And obviously it doesn't have the same sort of retention that a snap would, so kind of a downer there. I mean, it does have a pocket, which is cool, and I mean, you know, a clip which is certainly suitable. You know, a decent sized pocket to stuff some you know, items in there, but you know, kind of lame, you know, as all these sheaths honestly are going to be, but the fact that you don't have a snap or any adjustability there kind of sucks. You know, when you look at the actual inside, there is a plastic insert. I'm sure if you wanted to, you could heat that up and mold it and kind of take some of the rattle outside of the sheath. Anyway, that's just a real quick look at the Tops. You know, and finally, I guess, just to wrap it up, in terms of the quality of the fabric, it's certainly durable. Let's take a quick look at stitching if we can. I'll try to zoom in here. Give me 1 second. and the stitching seems to be pretty spot on. I mean, you know, the stitching's not straying from, you know, straight lines. It's not walking around. You don't end up with material flapping around. So, you know, reasonably decent on the actual, construction or quality of the craftsmanship. It's really just a matter of preference, I guess, on material, and for me, the fact that these straps do not have any buttons. So looking real quick at the Ontarios, obviously these smaller knives, I'm going to be a little bit less picky on these because, you know, they are folding knives. This pouch here is pretty simple, just a basic belt loop, holds the knife only in the vertical position. Although this one here is actually a little bit nicer in a way. It does, apart from being able to hold it in the vertical position, also allow you to put it in the horizontal position. And that's actually pretty cool for a smaller knife that you might carry as an EDC. I'll tell you, I'm not going to get into detail about what knife this is. You could probably figure it out, but I've been carrying this particular knife as an EDC for a long time. I've used the pouch off and on, but it's been pretty good for me, and at least it does give you two carry options in terms of the orientation, so not too bad. But I'm going to focus really more on these larger blades, so let me pop them out of the sheath and we'll get into the detail. Now, both these Ontario sheaths had the exact same construction. You'll notice at a glimpse, at first, you think they're not trying to advertise, they're trying to keep it low-key, but you flip it over and lo and behold, they do put their name on it. So at least they do have a little branding. They're not completely shy in terms of the, letting people know who they are and why they're using these crappy sheaths. But anyway, let's move forward. Similar to the tops knives, you do have a pouch on the outside of these Ontario sheaths. Very similar in construction. I'm going to actually show you the two side by side in just a second, but let's move forward here. This is a decent strap that actually gives you some ability to vary. By moving this Velcro loop, you can actually vary how tight the strap is, which is kind of nice. Then you do end up with the strap, buckle for the retention, and also almost like a hinge here. So it's a square loop that allows for more of a hinge action, which is actually kind of a nice feature. It allows you to get the strap out of the way when you're pulling the knife out, and so that works pretty well. Inside here, you'll see it's very similar in regards to the fact that there's a plastic liner. Again, you could probably heat that up and mold it to reduce the amount of rattle on your blade. But, all in all, we'll try to take a quick look at the stitching, make sure that the craftsmanship is sound. I mean, just right off the get-go, actually, let me change this up just a little bit, get you a little closer here. The stitching looks pretty solid. I don't see too much in the way of wandering on the sewing. It looks like all this sort of trim work is nice and tight and square and done pretty decent. So anyway, no real qualms in that regard. And then finally, just as I was starting to show you before, on the back of the sheath here, you do have a couple of buttons with some molly straps, so you can actually lash this thing to a pack. Now, as I said, I'd show you these two sheaths side by side. And you'll notice the details are a little bit different, the way they do the trim and the edges, and the buckles are similar but just a tiny bit different. And the pouches are actually very similar in size. They're almost identical. And like I said before, the difference in the straps, this Ontario having actual buttons and almost a hinge, and then this tops having these Velcro loops and straps to for the retention on your blade. So anyway, just a quick little side-by-side between those two, and we'll move on. Now, next for the Beckers. I don't know, I find this a little bit surprising. I mean, we don't have like a massive size difference in these blades. I mean, overall here you end up with just literally, if you match up the bottom here, you'll end up with literally just 1 inch difference in the size of the actual sheath. and the blade handle length by the time you get these things put in the sheath. So I mean, I'm kind of surprised even for the smaller knife. You know, I have here the BK9 and the BK7. I'm surprised they go through so much extra manufacturing and setup to make these different sizes. I'd almost think, you know, for how close these actually are, maybe they could just put the BK7 in the BK9 sheath and have a little extra material on the bottom. But it looks like they've gone and just, you know, completely fabricated a whole new sheath. Maybe that works for them. Who cares? No big deal. Let me get these blades out of the sheath and I'll go to it in a little more detail. Now I'm going to keep each one of these out here for this particular example because there are some differences to note. On the left hand side I have the BK9, on the right hand side I have the BK7. You'll notice that these do have snaps, but they don't have the adjustability or the hinge of the Ontario. Very similar, where you end up with these grommets and the ability to add paracord for lashing. Very similar, where you have a pocket on the front, but Becker tends to go with a Velcro versus a snap enclosure. I guess I don't have too much of a preference one way or another. I mean, the buckle might be quieter, and the Velcro, you're going to kind of be, you know, always tearing it open, makes a little bit of sound. And I don't know, maybe Velcro to me is a little bit chintzy too. But at the same time, I guess it serves a decent function. On these two sheaths, you have a very similarly sized pocket. And that's kind of, other than the material and the craftsmanship, where it stops. On the back, the BK9, way lame-o. I mean, come on, no molly. I mean, this is a big knife. The BK9 is a good size, and to not even have any molly on there, to me, is kind of lame. And at the same time, I mean, yeah, could you add paracord and lash this thing around your leg or something? Sure, but, you know, I'd really like to see the molly on here. I think it's very helpful. I've actually tried to lash this to my bag, and I was pissed off the first time I realized that my crappy Ballistic Nylon Sheath didn't even have molly. And so that kind of sucked. But anyway, at least they are a little bit better about that on the BK7. And at least in this case, you know, K-Bar is saying, yo, what's up? I'm good. I'm putting out a crappy Ballistic Nylon Sheath, but I'm not afraid to show my name. So anyway, in this particular case, you know, the BK7's a little bit better than the BK9, but both of these sheaths are pretty lame in my mind. And let's just real quick get a close-up on the stitching. You know, the stitching's decent, looks pretty good. Slightly different detail between these and the rest of the other companies, but you know, it again, just crappy Ballistic Nylon Sheath. This is what you get. Exactly the same as the other companies. The Becker sheath has a plastic insert. Again, you could probably heat that up and mold it and make it fit your knife a little bit tighter so you have less rattle. And finally, the Schrades. So this is kind of actually a hybrid design. Now, I have two of them out here, but I have a third, and you notice that this one doesn't have a pocket. The reality is you can actually remove these external pockets, and so there's a strap that goes around the back, and there's Velcro. So these things ride pretty solid, and so it's actually not a bad feature to be able to completely remove this external pocket, which I have in this case. I mean, who knows, maybe you're going somewhere and you just kind of want to slim this thing down and get it a little more low profile. That's actually not a bad little feature. And so let's continue on. I'll get you a little bit closer on some of these details and show you these Schrade ballistic sheaths. Schrade opted to go with a fixed loop, but it does have snaps, so that's kind of nice. That's at least you know, decent for retention. It's a little bit difficult when you I take it back completely. Hold on one second, let me regroup. So I completely take back what I was about to say. The Schrades do have adjustability. They just do it with a long piece of Velcro, so you can pretty much decide where you're gonna, you know, stick this thing down. So you do actually have adjustability in the amount of retention, how tight that strap is around the handle. So good job. I mean, at first I didn't notice it, and I've never really picked up on that before, but you can actually adjust that, so that's pretty cool. Again, back into the pouch, I've already discussed that. You know, at least you have the clip and you have the ability to remove it, decent straps. And on the back, pretty much the ability to put this on a MOLLE pack. This happens to be a slightly shorter sheath, so obviously there's less MOLLE involved, but at the same time it does what it does. Decent loop, and in fact this is a Velcro loop, so if you wanted to put it on your belt without actually taking your belt off, you certainly have the ability to do that. I should also note that I forgot to mention that fact on the rest of the sheaths in the other companies. So of all the sheaths, the Schrade is the only one that has the ability to actually remove this flap, or I should say open it up and put it around your belt without taking your belt off. All the others you'd be required to technically take off your belt to get this sheath onto your hip. And like the rest of the sheaths, on the Schrade you have a plastic insert which you can mold to potentially reduce the amount of rattle if you wish to do so. And finally, we'll take a quick look at the stitching. Pretty solid all around. I mean, nothing glorious, but at the same time, nothing that I can really, pick apart or tell anybody that they did a horrible job. So, I mean, it's solid. Everything's just, right where it needs to be. The trim looks okay, and everything seems to be pretty solid. Same type of durability, really, on all these companies. I mean, when I put them side by side and try to look at the actual quality of the nylon, I feel like it's very similar. So, none of them stick out really more than the others. So, the best crappy ballistic nylon sheath, I'd say that goes to Ontario. It's actually pretty good. It has the most features, perfectly quality craftsmanship, good enough. All the features, has the MOLLE, has the adjustable buckles, has that little hinge. You're using the snap. You have a good pocket, has a clip, quality stitching and craftsmanship. So pretty good across the board. The tops, I would have to say, is second. Although I really wish that they used better, system for retention. That's pretty much the main downfall behind it. At least they gave you two straps, so you get dual retention. That's kind of a bonus. Decent clip, nice size pocket, and you get the MOLLE. So not too bad, pretty reasonable. I put tops at second. Third place for me has to be the Schrade. Definitely a bonus that you can remove that outer pouch. Think that's pretty cool. Decent design with, expandable or I should say adjustable straps with snaps. That's great. Bit of MOLLE on the back, and actually not too bad. Pretty good bonus too if you have the ability to actually, remove this and open it up and put it around something around your belt or whatever you need to. Quality and the craftsmanship's fine. The buckles, I should say, are just a little bit less quality than the tops, but it's pretty well done, and so that is my third place. And now the winner of the crappiest of the crappy ballistic nylon sheaths has to go to Becker. This BK9 sheath is just bonesy. I mean, poor, crappy nylon sheath at its finest. Kind of weak with this Velcro. Yeah, you get the snap, but no adjustability. Just plain and blah, no MOLLE at all, especially for a larger blade. Other than that, I mean, I don't know. What can I say? It's a crappy ballistic nylon sheath. You know what? They all suck. And that's why we complain about them. So, hey, I might not have understood it before I actually owned a bunch of these, but now I have them all and I can look at them and compare them. And, if you need a sheath in a pinch, yeah, these are fine. Or if you just want to buy a nice blade, but it comes with them, yeah, it's fine. But like most other people, I completely concur. These sheaths are obviously garbage, but if you really want the most garbage of the garbage, crappy ballistic nylon sheath, you go with the Becker. So, anyway, guys, that's all I got for today. I appreciate you checking it out. Thanks for stopping by and checking out my channel. If you like what you saw, please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, thanks for stopping by. Take care now. I'll see you soon.